She walked into a lion's den with kindness in her heart, and they devoured her alive. In front of hundreds of glittering elites, they tore her dignity apart like it was some sideshow act. No one helped. No one cared. They laughed, sneered, and dismissed her like she was dirt tracked in on their marble floors. Her linen dress was treated like a joke among silk and sequins. And the woman who humiliated her? She smirked like a queen crushing a bug. Did she think this was a charity drive at a barn? It was supposed to be a simple evening. A peaceful gala. A teacher offering what little she had left to help children in need. But in under 3 minutes, they turned that generosity into something to mock. What they didn't know, what would haunt them by morning, was that the woman they just ridiculed wasn't just anyone. She was Elena Grace, the wife of the most powerful man in that room. Elena stood at the edge of Thornspire Hall, fingers wrapped tightly around a folded invitation, its edges worn soft from how long she'd held it. The place shimmered under chandeliers dripping gold, their glow spilling over marble floors and ceilings taller than dreams. Violins threaded the air, weaving a melody both delicate and commanding. High society paraded through the hall like characters in a fairy tale for the wealthy, gowns made of light champagne. Laughter that could cut glass, men in tuxedos scheming with low voices thick with secrets. Every pillar reflected their shine like a mirror, capturing their opulence, and Elena's quiet, ghost-like presence. She was dressed in soft ivory linen, ankle-length, with subtly flared sleeves that fluttered when she moved. It was simple, graceful, and unmistakably out of place. She'd found it in a cozy Brooklyn boutique, drawn by its honesty and elegance. On her feet, old flats with a scuffed toe, worn from long school days and late-night grading sessions. No jewelry, no makeup, just a touch of lip balm and her dark hair tucked into a loose, workaday bun. The invitation she held was personal, handwritten, her name inked carefully in the sender's looping script, a thank you for her donation to the school fund. No QR code. No golden embossing. Just words. Honest, sincere. She breathed in and scanned the room. This world, one where velvet hung like power and every glance felt like currency, wasn't hers. But she'd come anyway. For the children. For her students. For their families who needed coats, books, and hope. Every spare cent from her modest teacher's paycheck had gone to this cause. She had an expected gratitude. She certainly didn't expect an invitation. But when it came, she felt obligated to be present, to witness what her sacrifice had built. So she walked in, shoes nearly silent on the polished marble. The crowd shifted to let her pass, and then quickly sealed shut behind her, eyes barely touching her presence. A hostess approached, sharp in a black dress so tight it could cut steel, her smile brittle as ice. She scanned Elena, slowly, from hem to hair. Her voice, when it came, sliced through the music like a knife. "This is a private gala," she said, her tone coated in forced politeness. "You might be looking for the kitchen entrance." Elena met her gaze with a calm smile. "I was invited," she said softly. "I'm Elena G." The hostess glanced at her tablet, tapping briskly. "Not on the list," she snapped, not even bothering to check again. "Please step aside for the actual guests." Elena lifted her invitation. "This is my handwritten? We don't accept printed notes," the hostess scoffed. She looked at it like it was a napkin pulled from someone's purse. Around them, whispers spread like a virus. "Is that linen?" a woman in a sapphire gown asked, her pearls catching the light as she leaned toward her friend. Her companion clutched her sequined clutch, stifling a laugh. Did she think this was a farmer's market? From somewhere to the left, a man's voice chimed in, mocking, dripping venom. "Can't afford real shoes but wants to meet a billionaire." Laughter flared. Cruel. Contagious. Elena stood still, holding her letter like a shield. A man in a velvet blazer swaggered toward her, his voice loud enough for the room to hear. "Look at her." Trying to play the victim, he barked, swirling his whiskey. Bet she forged that note just to sneak in. Cameras flashed. Phones captured her humiliation as casually as a sunset. The woman in gold leaned in, perfume thick as poison. She's embarrassing all of us, she hissed, just by standing there. A man with diamond cufflinks mimicked Elena's soft tone. I was invited, he whined in a mocking falsetto, drawing even more chuckles. Still, Elena didn't move. Her face stayed calm, eyes fixed on the chandelier. But her knuckles whitened around that letter. Their cruelty wasn't just insults, it was entertainment. A spectacle. She stood, rooted, bearing their cruelty like a storm in silence. Her hazel eyes, deep, steady, never wavered. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. But the fury in her stillness was deafening. Then came her, Vanessa Laurie. The queen bee. Diamonds draped like armor. Her scarlet gown clung like it was born on her skin. Blonde hair perfectly sculpted, smile razor-sharp. She studied Elena like a stain on a designer rug. Oh sweetheart, she said, her voice all honey and knives, this party isn't for people like you. Try a local church drive, no dress code there. She circled Elena like prey. Her heels tapped in perfect rhythm, predatory. Loud enough for tables nearby to tune in. You thought you could just waltz in here, she mocked. This isn't a thrift shop, darling. She flicked her wrist toward a waiter. Then, accidentally, sent a tray of canapes flying, shrimp and creamy sauce landing across Elena's chest like a declaration of war. Gasps. Then laughter. Sparkling, savage, delighted. Oh, clumsy me, Vanessa purred, her eyes gleaming with cruelty. The whispers came like thunder now. She's done for. What a mess. Should have known better. Elena stood still, humiliation dripping onto the floor, her dignity under siege. But her eyes? They burned brighter than ever. And then, Vanessa's smile cracked. Because Elena's name was already in the air, and Alexander's voice was about to burn it into memory. Maybe, he said, each word crystal clear, you should ask yourselves who here is actually making a difference. No one spoke. Not one person dared. The guard stepped back. Heads bowed. Shame thick in the air. Elena stood beside him, still holding the now crumpled letter. Her face? Calm. But her eyes? Alive. Fierce. Unbroken. She didn't need to say a word. Her presence said everything. Alexander looked at her, his features softening. He leaned close, whispering just for her, you. Okay. She nodded slowly, a faint smile on her lips, quiet, graceful. The kind that doesn't gloat. Just stands tall. He squeezed her hand gently, then turned back to the stunned crowd. Enjoy your evening, he said. We'll be staying. He led her back into the hall, not rushed, not ashamed, but with a deliberate grace that turned every eye. The crowd split around them like a tide retreating from something sacred. Even the violinists hesitated, their bows trembling before resuming their song like children too scared to interrupt. Elena walked beside him, each step echoing with quiet power. Her dress, now stained with red, shimmered beneath the chandeliers like a flag, evidence of their cruelty, worn with dignity. She didn't shrink. She didn't hide. She let them see it all. Their gazes dropped. Phones disappeared into purses. Whispers died mid-sentence. Vanessa. Laurie stood frozen, her diamond necklace now a noose of her own making, her confidence evaporated. The woman in emerald silk was slipping toward the shadows, glass abandoned. Mid-table, as if fleeing the aftermath of her own wicked joke. The hostess fumbled with her tablet, fingers twitching, her posture crumpling like a failed apology. At the center of the ballroom, where light was brightest and eyes had no place to look away, Elena and Alexander stopped at a table cloaked in white silk. A waterfall of orchids cascaded. From its center, almost mocking in its delicacy, Alexander pulled out a chair for her, Not rushed. Not performative, but slow and purposeful. A gesture of undeniable intent. She belongs here. More than any of you ever did. She sat, straight-backed, hands folded neatly in her lap. The letter still rested in her palm, creased, smudged, and held with pride. Alexander took the seat beside her, his mere presence a shield between her and the judgmental masses. Around them, the gala resumed. But it wasn't the same. The air was thick. Voices were softer. Laughter sounded brittle. People glanced at Elena, then looked away, like their shame might be contagious. A waiter approached. Tentative. Shaking slightly. Champagne, She met his eyes. Gentle but firm. Water, please. Her voice was soft, but it cut deeper than their cruelty ever had. He nodded and returned quickly, setting a glass before her with the care of someone serving royalty. Across the room, Vanessa hissed under her breath to a man in a navy tuxedo. How was I supposed to know? She looked like a nobody. Her voice trembled now, an empress. Dethroned. The man didn't meet her gaze. His cufflinks glinted like betrayal. You picked the wrong target. Vanessa. He doesn't forget. Elena sipped her water slowly, unfazed. She could feel the eyes still lingering, but they no longer stung. She thought of her students. Of Leia, who drew stars on every scrap of paper. Jamal, who struggled to read but refused to quit. Maria, who once shared half her sandwich. When Elena forgot her lunch. They were her reason. They were her pride. This room? This sea of wealth and vanity? It had no power over her anymore. Alexander leaned toward her, voice low and tender. We can go, he murmured. Whenever you want. She turned to him, her gaze steady, unwavering. I'm staying, she said, each syllable ringing like a bell. For the kids. He nodded, a rare smile ghosting across his usually unreadable face. In his eyes, pride glimmered. She wasn't just enduring this. She was commanding it. As the evening wore on, the glitz dimmed. The glamour faded under the weight of collective discomfort. A woman in a silver gown approached their table cautiously. Her heels hesitated on each step, her practiced smile faltering. Mrs. Hawthorne, she began, voice catching in her throat. I'm Clara Voss. From the charity board. We didn't know about your donation. It's incredible. Would you allow us to acknowledge you tonight? Elena glanced at the letter. Her thumb brushed its corner like a goodbye. Then she shook her head gently. Acknowledge the children, she said. They're the ones who matter. Clara blinked, lips parting as her eyes filled. She nodded quickly, then turned to whisper to a colleague, she's incredible. Dinner arrived. Carefully plated scallops, figs roasted to perfection, greens kissed with truffle oil. Elena ate in silence, her movements precise, controlled. Her mind drifted not to the glitter around her, but to her little apartment. To the stacks of lesson plans on her modest table. The squeak of her old kettle as it boiled for tea. She thought of Alexander, the boy who once read Plato to her in a college library, rain tapping the windows behind him. Their vows, spoken quietly in front of a justice of the peace. Her cotton dress. His favorite sweater. No flowers. No photographers. Just two people choosing a life that didn't need to be seen to be real. A man approached, clumsy in his guilt. His tie was crooked, his cheeks blotchy with discomfort. Mr. Hawthorne, he said, clearing his throat. I'm Gerald Clean. From Klein Enterprises. I want to apologize. About earlier. We had no idea. Alexander didn't flinch. His eyes were like winter stone. Cold. Final. You didn't need to know. He said. And that was the end of it. Gerald stuttered, hands flailing uselessly before he gave up and shrank into himself, defeated. Elena, steady as stone, touched Alexander's arm, her voice barely above a breath. Let it go. He locked eyes with her, jaw grinding with the fury he was swallowing. Then he nodded, laying his hand over hers. "For you," he muttered, and Elena heard everything he didn't say. She understood the hurricane he could summon with a word, but she wouldn't. Her strength didn't live in revenge, it lived in the silence she ruled, the choice to rise when anger begged her to fall. The auction resumed, a slick MC in a tuxedo rattling off prizes, a yacht weekend, a diamond necklace, a private jet tour, each item sparking louder bids, the room thick with the stink of flexing egos. Elena sat motionless, her mind far from glitter and gloating, thinking only of the children. When the MC announced a fundraiser for school libraries, her true mission, Elena leaned in. Then, Clara Voss took the stage, voice trembling but sure. "Tonight, we received a gift that will change countless lives," she said. "A single donor gave everything, every saved dollar, every scraped-together sacrifice, for the kids. She asked for no spotlight, but her heart fills this room." Polite clapping followed, hollow and dutiful. Elena felt Alexander's fingers tighten around hers, his pride a quiet blaze under his cool surface. She didn't crave their applause, she never had. Her mission had never been about being seen. Across the room, Vanessa Laurie clung to her champagne glass like a life raft. Her diamonds looked dull now, her laughter brittle. She tried to chatter, to charm, but the room had turned on her. Whispers circled her like sharks, slashing with every hiss of her name. Lorelux, her empire, thrived on Hawthorne contracts, and she knew exactly how thin the ice beneath her had become. Their eyes met across the ballroom for a fleeting second. Vanessa looked away, wringing her napkin, a woman crumbling under invisible weight. Night deepened, the chandeliers grew heavy, casting long, bruised shadows. Elena stood, her dress still bearing the evening's battle scars, the letter tucked safely in her pocket. Alexander rose beside her, unshakable. Together, they walked toward the stage, where Clara waited, her eyes bright with gratitude. "We raised $10 million. Tonight," Clara whispered fiercely as she squeezed Elena's hand, "because of you." Elena only shook her head, smiling softly. "Because of everyone." But everyone in that room, every onlooker, every whisperer, knew the truth. Phones lit up, capturing her image, Elena Grace. Standing tall, dress imperfect, spirit unbreakable. Posts flooded in. Captions crowned her, true class, a new kind of royalty. By morning, Elena wouldn't just be a woman. She would be a symbol, the billionaire's wife who wore her battle scars like diamonds, the woman who turned linen into legend. As they neared the grand doors, Alexander paused and pulled something small from his coat, a simple bouquet of sunflowers, bright and defiant. "You don't need to shine, Elena," he said, voice barely above the hush of the crowd. "You are the light." She took the flowers with a trembling hand, her eyes glistening but steady as the earth. Silent, the crowd watched them leave. The doors closed behind them with a heavy finality, and suddenly, the glittering hall seemed smaller, emptier, its laughter exposed as brittle and thin. Outside, the night was cool, the city alive in the distance. Elena clutched the sunflowers to her chest, breathing in their fierce, honest scent. Alexander's hand found hers, and they slipped into the dark together. Unseen, unstoppable, enough. The next morning, the fallout hit like a tidal wave. Guest lists turned into blacklists. Klein Enterprises, Voss Media, and half a dozen others woke up too. Scorched earth emails, Hawthorne's fury in motion. Contracts shredded. Partnerships obliterated. Stock prices nosedived. Headlines screamed of Hawthorne's revenge. The man in the velvet blazer, who had crowed about Elena's fraudulence, saw his firm's value hacked in half by breakfast, his board voting him out by lunch. The woman in the emerald dress, her champagne toss immortalized in 1,000 brutal memes, lost her influencer deals. Overnight, her followers vanishing like smoke, The hashtag #CancelEmerald sealing her fate. Those who laughed too loudly now scrambled to apologize, flooding Elena's inbox with desperate pleas, every one of them left unread. Their cruelty, once a cheap thrill, had become their legacy. Their downfall was stitched to Elena's quiet, graceful stand. If this story struck your heart the way it struck ours, don't forget to smash that like button, drop your favorite twist in the comments, and subscribe, because real class doesn't shout. It simply shines.